Hello, everyone. So we're just give a couple of minutes for the people to start coming in. I can see that the numbers are growing. Okay. So hello, everyone. For the newcomers, we're just going to give maybe one more minute before we start. Hello. Okay, so there are some people still coming in. Hello, Elaine. Okay, we're still seeing some people coming in, so we'll just wait a couple of more minutes. Okay, so since I can still see some people coming in, but I think we will just want waste our time, so we just keep going. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today, for getting to know our judges for the Tiger Global Case Competition 2020. I'm very excited for the webinar today, as we have so many people attending from many countries like Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, Philippines, Korea, and more. So I think it would be great if you can type in the chat on which country you're from. That would be great. All right, so my name is Bo Oranut, a country manager of Crimson Education Thailand, and I'm very honored to be the host for the webinars today. And for those who might not know, Crimson Education is one of the fast-growing educational consulting company operating in 23 offices around the world. We help students reach their full potential to international education, and that we are very happy to be helping to organize this year's case competition. All right, so as I said, there's so many people joining our webinar today. I'm very excited, and I'm sure you do as well. This is a very big opportunity for us to be able to meet with our judges who are very successful and very well known. So not only the incredible judges that we are excited about today, I'm sure that you all are very excited about the case competition as well, which the case will be released on this coming Saturday, the 5th at around 2 p.m. Thailand time or Vietnam time, or 3 p.m. Singapore time. Wow, very exciting. However, before we're going to receive our case, we have organized this webinar today to introduce you to our amazing judges that are going to be evaluating the top presentations live in the regional round, which will happen on Sunday 19th, and that you have around 2 weeks to prepare. So good luck and have fun. And before I kick off for today's webinar, I'd like to thank you, our principal partner with Tiger Global Management and our official sponsor, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for making this event happen. And also that I would like to thank you, our incredible judges, for volunteering their time today so that we have the opportunity to meet with them. Thank you very much again. And one last note, before we meet our judges, please use the Q&A button to ask any questions you might have to the judges, and the selected questions will be answered in the webinar. Also, if you have any questions related to the competition, please feel free to type in. We have Carrie, Kevin, Anna, and MT to help answering all the questions for you. So let's not waste our time and get started. Meet our judges. The first person, Kinam Doan from Vietnam. He graduated from MIT Management Science, and he has 13 years of experience as entrepreneur and senior executive. And he's currently a co-founder of Co-Thrive. Previously, Kinam held senior management and executive positions at leading global and Vietnamese companies in the retail, consulting, hospitality, tech, and investment industry. So Kinam, could you kindly say hi to all the participants today?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday. Hopefully we'll be able to give you a little bit of insight and you guys get to know us a little bit better before you start your weekend.
All right.
Did you want me to talk about myself a bit, or was that the introduction there?
Please do. That would be great.
Oh, okay. Well, I think she covered most of it, but I think what's also important is to talk about a couple of non-professional things as well. I've spent a lot of time in martial arts. I did MMA back in high school, did jiu-jitsu 6 years, karate for 6 years, taekwondo for 4 years. And then I also did dance. I was a creative director of a Bhangra dance company in San Francisco called Dunya Dance. And I taught dance Bhangra at MIT and the MIT summer program. So I really like dance and martial arts. But yeah, I mean, because it looks like this description here is just all about work. Thought I'd add a little bit of color there. And you can also see, well, actually my dog is hiding behind the leaf there, but he'll join from time to time. Maybe he'll add a little bit of input. You never know. But I've got 2 dogs. Another dog might join in as well. All right. Well, it's nice to be here. I'm very happy to be here, and let's continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Kinam. Well, that's something that I learned. You're also a dance teacher. Will we be able to see you dance sometime later, maybe?
If anyone comes to Vietnam, let me know, and I can show you some dance moves.
Okay, I'll note that down. All right, thank you so much. All right, so thank you so much, Kinam. So the next person is Vikas Prashad. He's a portfolio manager at M&G Investment, and he's the first equity portfolio manager based outside the firm's global headquarters in the UK. Very amazing. And he focuses on investments in technology and healthcare, and he had a degree from Harvard University and University of Virginia. And as well that he was an ECOLS scholar. So please say hi to our audience.
Well, hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I see a lot of people in the chat from India in particular, so namaskar and salam to all of you. I'm excited to be part of the competition this year. I should start off by saying I cannot dance. Nobody wants to see me dancing, but I'm ready to take lessons. My son, Aryan, is a teenager. He is part of the Crimson Rise program. He's also a student as part of CGA while he's taking classes here at SAS, Singapore American School. So we are increasingly close to the broader Crimson enterprise. So it's wonderful to interact with all of you. I think I'll leave it there. One thing I will do at the end is I will share my email address on the chat. I'm always happy to help. I think this will come up in the Q&A session, but I have found throughout my career, it's been very helpful to have mentors who are engaged. And I'm happy to do that for anybody who has questions. So I will do that. Please reach out. Don't be shy. And I will help you as much as I can.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a really, really nice view as well. All right, so the next person, unfortunately that he cannot be here. As you know, the CEO would also have something very important come up, but he's very excited to meet with you in the final round. All right, so that's Mark Lynn from Taiwan. Mark is a CEO of Lead Capital Management, and he has like over 25 years of experience. And he's been working with the 70 out of the Fortune 500 companies. And that's very amazing. And hope to see him in the final round, and also with you guys as well. All right, so let's just not waste our time and get started. So maybe I'll just start my question to Kinam. The first question is for you. Okay, so when you were a teenager, did you have a set career path in mind? And if so, did this change over time?
All right. Well, I did. I think most do, and a lot of times it's generally dictated a bit by your parents. My career path, what I wanted to do when I was in high school was to be an engineer, aeroastro engineer, and get to Mars. So my application, for example, my application at MIT was my 40-year plan to get to Mars in one way or another. So it basically had to do with not only my personal milestones, but also certain other ones having to do with travel and black matter engines at the time, and terraforming Mars and colonizing Mars, basically. So that was my career plan. During high school, I went to like Stanford summer camp it's like a space camp, and JPL space camp as well. Summer after my sophomore year or junior year, I can't really remember now, but one of those years. And those really inspired me. And at home, my dad and my mom always bought me the rocket kits that you can build with the little small, looks like a roll of quarters, the little I guess fuel for it, solid fuel. And so that's really what I wanted to do. So when I went to college, I enrolled in aeroastro engineering, course 16, and it only lasted 2 years. I ended up with management science, which is basically data science for the corporate or management world, where you focus on different processes and you identify what you're trying to achieve, whether it's speed or efficiency or quality, and you try to find a local and global maxima and all those models that you make. So that's the type of stuff that I ended up getting into. Now, what I'll say though, on a more general basis, I don't know very many people of my peers, and just in general, very many people who are doing what they thought they would be doing back in high school. So keep an open mind. I might talk about this a little bit in the future, or in a couple minutes from now. But basically, that's where my career started. It's changed quite a bit. I've gone through a lot, and I really didn't figure out what I want to do with my life until about 6 years ago. So I'm 37 now. So I was 31 before I figured out what I wanted to do. And before that, after I graduated, I started a company with one of my best friends, Indian Lunchbox. That lasted like less than a year. I also started another company called Voter Block, and that lasted maybe a year and a half or so. We had a little funding, and then I worked in marketing. Actually, in San Francisco, I was the marketing manager of Talk Life, and I was the CMO of a company called Repify. And then after marketing, I didn't really like it very much, and so I pivoted and switched over. And I tried a little bit of finance. I did finance management for Colliers, for development fund, for 1 year before I figured out what I wanted to do. And after that, I moved into operations. And so for the past 6 years, I've basically been in operations or strategic development of a company. So I focus on improving the competencies of a company to be able to develop competitive advantages in their marketplace. So that's basically where I am now and where I will probably be for a while. Now that seems like a lot of changes and shifting from here to there, but a lot of the stuff that I do now, I learned throughout all of my experiences, and that's an important thing to do, to take with you. As you go through your careers, you may switch careers, and I think it's okay. I encourage it, actually, especially the younger you are, the more I encourage trying different careers. But I learned a lot about marketing. I learned a lot about computer science. I learned a lot about project management as I went through. I learned a lot about data from school, and I used a lot of my learning from school in data management and behavioral science, etc. And I use a lot of that stuff today still. And so I don't feel like at any point I wasted time or I lost a year trying this or lost a year trying that. Because every time I tried something, I learned quite a bit. When I worked in finance for that 1 year, I learned a lot about finance, and I'm definitely not as good as Vikas, I'm sure, but it helped me understand a lot more about corporate finance, and I use that today as well. Anyway, so long story short, I guess we should end it there. I believe our answers should be around 2 minutes, right? Is that what we're aiming for? Don't want to run over too much.
No problem. Well, that was a really, really good answer. It's actually
could I add one more? I would like to take it back round though. I still want to go to Mars. So that still hasn't changed, but I guess that's not really a path or career path. That's more of a physical destination.
okay. All right. So thank you very much for the first question. It was a really, really good knowledge for students who, especially, in later years, that they would need to take their career path as well, so that they would sort of know what they would be experiencing later as well. All right. So I think for the students or the people who are attending this webinar, if you have any questions or anything to ask either Kinam or Vikas, please feel free to write in the Q&A, and selected questions will be answered as well. All right, since we're actually going to the first question with, giving some experiences or sharing experiences in terms of the career path, maybe I'll just ask the same question to Vikas as well. So when you were a teenager, did you have a set career path in mind? And if so, did this change over time?
So it's a good question. I would say I did not have a set career path, but there were certain things that I was set on achieving for my career, and various stages of my life before graduating from college informed that view. So there are three things. Number one, when I was a child, I read, so I was born in Washington, D.C., and though I love D.C. and I will always consider it home, I read this one stat once that the vast majority of people die within about 50 kilometers of where they were born. So when I was a child and I read that, I thought, well, I don't want that for me. I want to be as far from Washington, D.C. in my life as I can be. Not quite on Mars, but I wanted. So I looked up the antipode, which is the opposite, the furthest city from wherever you are. And for Washington, D.C., that was Australia. So I'm in Singapore now, not quite in Australia, but I wanted to go far. Number two, growing up with a bit of a hard scrabble background. My father never went to college. My mother went to a very small school in India before they moved to the US. Never really having much in the way of material things or money, never being comfortable. I wanted to do something that I could do for my whole life and make a living from that. And then third, so that was probably middle school and high school when I came to that realization. The antipode was when I was in elementary school. And then going through college, the benefit of going or being an Eccles Scholar at the University of Virginia for undergrad was that I had no requirements, I had no prerequisites. So I took courses all across the university: business, government, finance, medicine, law. And I realized that whatever I did, I wanted it to be consilient in nature. Consilience, by the way, is a nice book from one of my professors from Harvard, Edward Wilson, worth reading. But basically, something that brought together many different disciplines. So when I was graduating from college, I came upon investing, and I chose the path that would get me there. So on a daily basis today, though I focus on companies in technology and healthcare, I look at everything around the world. I focus on Asia, but Asia is so broad. Everything from India to Australia and New Zealand and all the markets in between. We invest in AI companies, quantum computing companies, but we also invest in pharmaceutical companies. We invest in automotive companies. And many of the companies that you'll be familiar with: Sony, Maruti, Naver in Korea. These are some of our larger positions. Reliance Industries in India. So I love what I do, and my job brings together all these three things. It's very far from where I grew up. I wanted to be based in Asia. It allows me to provide a living, comfortable living to my parents and to my wife and to my son. And it touches so many different industries and so many different disciplines. I am never bored. So that would be the answer to the question, is that I did not have a set career path in mind, but I had a set number of things that I really wanted. And I'm fortunate to have gotten all those things.
Okay, so thank you very much. I like your word when you say, I love what I do. That's really drives, the daily routine and the work as well, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so I do have a question from one of our participants to Kinam. From the two companies you started, what were key takeaways and lessons you learned and that future entrepreneurs should be looking to implement?
Okay, let's see. This is pretty complex. All right, so the first thing that comes to mind is, for myself, when I started these two companies, are around the time that I just, right before I graduated and within the first 2 years of myself graduating from university. So I was 21, 22, 23 or so. I believe that I shouldn't have done it at such an early age. Now, of course, there's some others may disagree with me, but I did not have the skills to run a company. I did not have the skills. So I had great product in mind, and that's all I knew. I just knew how to create the product. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know how to do product delivery, market positioning, of course, and I also didn't know how to fundraise. And so even though it was exciting and interesting and fun, I actually don't think I learned that much, to be honest, because I am 21, 22, 23, and I'm teaching myself. There, like, you know, when I'm starting a company, I'm not working for somebody. I'm not learning from someone. I'm teaching myself. And unless you are extremely methodical about how you learn, you will still generally learn from books at that age rather than learning from doing. And so for myself, the first thing that when I think back is that maybe I should have waited a little bit longer before trying something like starting a business, such as the Co-Thrive I just started this past April. I do believe I've got all the skills required now, and I definitely didn't have before. Of course, it was like I said, it was still good experience, but it's basically a recipe for failure. The second thing is that for myself, and everyone's very different, there are certain things that I prefer not to do. And so for myself, having a co-founder is very important, and having a co-founder that is extremely trustworthy and can run at the same speed that you can in a different direction is also very important. My first three, so this is the fourth company I've started, and actually, sorry, fourth company I started. The first three, basically the main issues revolved around my relationship with my co-founder, and there's a lot of different things. The first one, the Indian lunchbox, what happened was actually kind of just like a freak accident. My co-founder, he went to France for vacation with his wife, and when he went to France, his wife left him, and then when he came back, his father passed away within a week of that. And so he basically shut down and he left. He left everything and he moved back to India. And so that he was taking care of half of the business that I didn't know that half of the business. So I just ended that and I started something new. So for example, something like that can happen. But in any case, the three that ended, so we closed all three of those, and all three were closed, and they all had to do with certain types of issues revolving around the two founders, or the co-founders. And so when I started Co-Thrive, I actually waited 4 years. So I wanted to create this company 4 years ago, but I didn't find anyone that I wanted to do it with. And it took until this February that I ran into somebody that I thought was a very good match for me. And so in the meantime, I was working at another company for like 3 years, or during the 3 of those 4 years. But yeah, so I'd say those two things. I wouldn't tell anyone not to do a startup, because I'd encourage them to always try something. But at the same time, you also have to be pretty thoughtful about your planning and understand your strengths and weaknesses. I spent the last 8 years working on, I had a strategy. So for the past 8 years, I basically spent time in a small, medium, and large size business as COO and managing director, because I want to take what I'd learned before and what I thought I knew, test it in different sizes and see if it scaled up, and to be able to basically validate my own experience and my own learning before trying again, because this would be my fourth and the first three failed. And so to improve my, I guess, chances at success, I decided, okay, I really need to learn certain things. And so I went and I learned them. So I would say go ahead and just, if you really want to do a startup, you're asking about entrepreneurship here. I would go ahead and go for it. Remember, co-founders are very important. The vast majority, I wouldn't say vast majority. I did read somewhere and I don't remember, so don't quote me on it. I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, but the chances for success, like there's a very high correlation. We don't really talk about causation here, between 2 and 3 person startups, founders, and success. There's a very high correlation between having 2 or 3. So make sure you find someone good that brings different things to the table. And not necessarily things that you're not good at, but things that you don't want to focus on. Okay, I think that would be 3 things that I learned from my first 2 startups.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Then I would probably go a little bit further into the next question, which is more or less related to the previous question that I asked earlier. This is to Kinam as well. Since we were talking about, the career change or the career path has been, changes throughout the times that you've been, since from you graduated up until now. What about a piece of advice to, some people who just about to start their career, either going for the startup or being an employee?
All right. I think this question would also be great for Vikas as well. I believe that Vikas, myself, we had quite different paths. It sounded like Vikas, after graduating, had already chosen finance, and he's gone through his entire career. Basically, not necessarily one career path, but one kind of domain, functional domain. And whereas I've really tried a lot of different things, and I didn't really figure out what I liked and what I was good at until I was 31. So it took me 10 years, I guess, basically. And so these are 2 very different approaches, and neither one's good nor are they bad. You really have to understand yourself. So for example, I do know some folks who would probably feel really anxious if they were in my position. Like if they didn't have a very clear plan, if they didn't basically know exactly what they want to do in the short term, midterm, long term, right? So it wouldn't really work for them. So you do have to understand your own personality and your own, I guess I would call it utility curve. What really matters for yourself, not just in the short run, but in the midterm. Thinking long term is only really works for certain kinds of people. So we have people who are basically really far forward looking, and they plan far in advance, and they're willing to sacrifice currently for things in the really long term. That's one extreme. And then the other extreme is what you'd call the hedonist, someone who really, there's a lot of endorphins. They're really happy about things that happen now. And that is a personality type. You can try to change it, but it's like fighting yourself. It's probably better to understand yourself and embrace it and plan a better life around who you are than trying to change that. Because I don't believe, I'm not a psychologist, but I really don't believe you can change that very much. You can affect it a little bit. So really understand who you are. And that's, you need to know that before you start thinking about, do I plan long-term careers or not? For myself, I'm a little bit more short-term. And so for me to be able to handle that, I started doing annual planning for skills development. So what I have is like a functional breakdown of things that I really want to learn. And those are short-term. I can learn certain things within a year or less, right? And so I can build that, and then I can start choosing professions or careers based off what I'm good at. So that works a little bit more for me. I can't do what Vikas has done. I can't plan 40 years ahead and just think and have that vision and drive me that way. I'm more of a 5-year or less type. I don't know Vikas. I just met him today, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it kind of seems like that. So what the main thing I'm trying to impress on everyone here is that everyone's very different. So make sure you understand yourself in that area. And then think about, and I do think is important, people are changing careers more often now, think about more of a skills and functional development if you aren't sure what you want to do. If you are sure what you want to do, then by all means, if you know what you want to do, map that backwards towards one, career planning, and two, skills planning or competencies planning, and work on developing those. Not just that, but also in terms of joining organizations or brotherships if you're going to university, some types of fraternities like science fraternities or that type of thing. So we're not talking just about yourself, but developing more of your network and your ability to expand your network as well in that area. Yeah, so if you do really know, and I don't want to, kind of dismiss those, make sure even if you do really know, keep an eye out for other things as well. You do change, everyone changes, and they change every year. And what you also like can also change. And for myself, that has been the case.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kinam. Then I do have a next question, is pretty much more or less a holistic to questions as well to Vikas. Since we're talking about, students choosing the career path and, working along the way or changes in terms of the career path along the way. However, in that case, sometimes there are risks as well. Maybe can you share a little bit on how did you learn to embrace risk taking, or some advice to the students for taking some risks?
Sure. So that's a good question. I would say the way I approach it is I like to think in terms of probabilities. I apply that to the portfolio when selecting which investment or which company or which security I want to allocate capital to. Thinking on the incremental return on the capital, thinking through different scenarios. So I think that the same through for myself when I'm making a big decision. So thinking in terms of probabilities, thinking through the different scenarios, what the probabilities are, the risk-weighted outcome is, number one. Number two, I also like to think through pre-mortems. So when I was in college, I mentioned I tried a lot of things, took many different courses. One of the things I did was I was an EMT, emergency medical technician. EMT, we call them in the US, right around in the ambulance and help people. I also volunteered in a hospital. So one of the things that you learn is to do not a post-mortem, but a pre-mortem, which is let's think through what could happen. If things go wrong, why might they go wrong? If things go well, also, why might they go well? And I think instead of trying to, instead of committing to one course of action wholeheartedly, I think if you consider different alternatives, that helps your decision making quite a bit as well. One thing I also wanted to highlight is it's drummed into us that risk and reward are correlated. I don't necessarily think that's true. I actually believe in many cases the total opposite is true. The highest rewards come with less risk. So for example, if I'm investing in Sony ahead of the PS4 launch or the PS5 launch, or if I'm investing in Reliance Industries right when they are launching Jio in India in 2016, 2017, and I have a high visibility, high confidence in the outcome in the long term, that is very low risk proposition, but the return is enormous. If I'm investing in a biotech venture with a low probability of success, that is not a high risk, high reward kind of opportunity. That's a very high loss of capital kind of opportunity. So I think that is one thing that we hear quite often from others, from the media, from various publications. But I encourage people not to think that way and to think that quite often the lowest perceived risk does yield the highest return.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. I do have a question from our attendees today to Vikas again. Noting your interest in technology and healthcare, which innovations and technology ideas are strongest and most promising for this COVID times and the future ahead, which would prove to be the more rewarding investment for you?
So in terms of investments for capital allocation, I can give some answers to that. The others for starting a venture or pursuing a career, I can give some answers for that, and they overlap to an extent. So in our portfolio, we have reasonable exposure to e-health, to telemedicine, to online pharmacies in Asia. There are some very interesting companies that do that. Sony has a 1/3 stake in a Japanese company called M3, online doctor services. There's a series of companies in China that do the same thing. There's many companies in the US that do the same thing. So I think marrying technology, just like Crimson has done, right? This competition could not have been at this scale without marrying technology and learning. Same thing in healthcare. So coupling traditional healthcare services with technology and erasing the distance between doctors and patients, hospitals and patients. Companies that do that, I think that is a very fruitful area for investing, and it will be for the long term. Reducing the friction between many aspects of healthcare. So if you think about going to the doctor in various countries, or getting your prescription filled, or buying contact lenses, there are so many areas where there's a great deal of friction. Currently, there are a lot of companies that are trying to reduce that. So look for those companies. The other area where I'm very excited about, and we spend a lot of time on, is advanced computing applications for pharmaceuticals and biotech applications. So what do I mean by that? Whether it is advanced nodes in computing today, or the future of quantum computing applied to protein folding, to modeling out medicines for various diseases, instead of doing animal trials and then human trials, spending billions and billions of dollars on that. A lot of these simulations can be done through advanced computing. Those opportunities are small, but growing. I encourage everybody, if you have an interest in quantum computing, just to Google that, Google some of the centers for quantum computing around the world. Just last Monday, I had lunch with the head of Singapore's Center for Quantum Technology, which is part of NUS. And he said that the area that he is most excited about is, one, quantum sensors, and then the second is the combination of AI, machine learning, and quantum technologies. So that I think those are some areas. I'm happy to chat more offline if anybody has any questions, but those are some areas I'm excited about.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. I think we don't really have that much time, but I do have very important questions from our participants today. So I think this question actually goes for both. What do you, in terms of the event or the TGCC, what are the deciding factors you would be looking for in our solutions to the case study? Maybe go to Kinam first.
All right. Okay. So as you guys know, we haven't seen the case yet. So a lot of this will actually be based off of the scenario itself, in terms of what type of case this is regarding, what does it affect in terms of life. In general, for case like competitions or case studies in the past, a lot of case studies tend to focus a lot around things such as creating value or profitability, rather than something like planet or I guess social good. So again, it really does have to do with that. It'll be fairly clear when the cases are released. In my experience, when I've seen cases released, it is really clear exactly what the case is trying to shoot for in terms of an objective, to a solution or multiple solutions. So it is a little bit difficult to answer you there, but keep in mind that it can be varied, and it's not necessarily something that the result may not necessarily be something that is the most profitable, but it could be the most effective or the most broad or widespread. For example, if we're talking about COVID and something like a pandemic, if you're talking about a specific scenario of how are we going to fix or get rid of or ameliorate the situation, then you would think about not only a solution, but also cost effectiveness and distribution to the highest risk populations. And it can be pretty expensive in certain scenarios like that. So yeah, I think that that about wraps up my answer.
All right, thank you so much. And what about you, Vikas?
So I'll just say two things. Number one, I think what is important to remember is that any business is very simply Price times volume less costs. So whether you are thinking about how Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook price ads and the volume of those ads and the cost of the servers and the people, or you're thinking about Apple and the cost of production, how they price the phone relative to the Galaxy Fold, Sony and the PS4 and the PS5, it is price volume less costs. So any business can be reduced to that. Now, the drivers of each of those three can be very complicated, but demonstrating an understanding of what drives the price, what drives the volume, and what drives the costs, leading to the profitability that Kinam mentioned, I think that would be very important. So if you can demonstrate an understanding of that, number one. Two, I think in some ways, most of our schooling is backwards in that you are tested on problems that you are given, you're trained, and you provide answers for those problems. In real life, what you find out very quickly is nobody's there to tell you what the problem is. You have to find the problem first, make sure you're spending your time on the right problem, and then finding the answers to that problem. So I think in the case study, it will be important based on the evidence to think through, instead of doing immediately, starting off by thinking, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? Is it explicit? Is there an implicit problem that I'm not thinking about that I should be thinking about? And then going about spending your time on that. I think that will never be a waste of time to stop, look at the evidence, think, am I solving the right problem first? And then going forward. So those are the two bits of advice I would give.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Kinam, and thank you so much, Vikas, for our interview today. All right. Okay, so I think that's probably until the end of our interview today. So I'm just going to show you the last slide on the timeline that we're going to have. So as you see that the case will be released very soon on the 5th and at 2 p.m. Hanoi time and 3 p.m. for Singapore time. And also the final round, the finalist team will be presenting live, at 10 to 1:30 Hanoi time and 11 to 2:30 p.m. time. So if you would like to know more information, you can actually go into our website as well. All right, so thank you very much, Vikas. Thank you very much, Kinam, and all the participants today.
Best of luck to everyone. Thank you for the Crimson team, rather.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend ahead. Look forward to all these submissions.
All right. Bye, everyone.